Good evening, all. Welcome to the latest episode of CPPR Dialogue, a webinar dialogue series on key policy issues hosted by Center for Public Policy Research, Kochi. I am Anu Maria Francis, Senior Associate, Research and Project Management at CPPR, the moderator of the day. So today's topic of discussion is on compacting online violence against women and girls, legal, institutional, and technological perspectives. So before getting into the discussion, I would like to discuss why we chose this topic and why this day. So December 10 marks the final day of 16 Days of Activism to end gender-based violence. It's organized by UN and observed annually. And the theme of the year is Unite to End Gender-Based Violence against digital violence against all women and girls. So as the world marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, one of the most progressive international agreements on women's rights to date, the UN Secretary General's Unite 2025 campaign focuses on one of the fastest growing forms of abuse, which is the digital violence against women and girls. So this year's campaign is also a reminder that digital safety is central to gender equality. Second reason is that December 10th is also Human Rights Day, and VAWG is obviously a human rights issue. And third, CPPR had recently undertaken a national level research study on strengthening institutional mechanisms for compacting violence against women and girls. And we did this study in 5 states of India: Kerala, Telangana, Goa, Rajasthan, and Jharkhand. And in all the 5 states, we had conducted extensive state-level consultations as well as workshops. And online VAWG issue was one of the core areas that we discussed. And from these discussions, what we felt was that this topic requires more attention. Because even in the grassroots level, the organizations that are working at the grassroots level, even the government officials who are working in the grassroots level, like one-stop centers and other mechanisms, they all focus on the physical, sexual, and the other violent forms of violence. And the focus on digital violence is quite low or comparatively inadequate compared to the focus on the other ones. So also the knowledge as well as the understanding of the crime, how to report the issues, all these things are also considered to be very inadequate compared to the other type of crimes. And also, if you look at the data, based on the NCRP data, the National Crime Reporting Portal data, the online crimes against women have increased significantly. Like from 22,188 in 2020, it rose to about 48,475 in 2024, representing around 118% of rise. And the highest surges are seen in categories such as cyber pornography, cyberstalking and bullying, defamation. And also there's a decline in cyber blackmailing as well as fake profile creation, according to their data. So this data actually underscores both the intensification as well as evolving nature of the online crimes targeting women in the country. So in this context, today we will be discussing some key questions like efficacy of the existing laws, institutional mechanisms, and how far civil society organizations are playing a role in combating online VAWs in India. I think there are very few civil society organizations also in the space. So before getting into the deliberations, I would like to introduce our amazing panelists for the day's session. Mr. Prakash PIPS, he is the Inspector General of Police. He's a Kerala Cadre Officer heading State's Crime Records Bureau currently. He had previously served as Nodal Officer for Police IT Division, Kerala Police Cyber Dom, Counter Child Sexual Exploitation Center, Drone Forensic Lab and Research Center. So quite influential figure in the Kerala police space with respect to cybersecurity transformation. Welcome, sir, to the CPPR Dialogue. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Anu.
We have Mr. Nikhil Narendran. He's a partner of Trilegal Bangalore office. He's subject matter expert in technology, media, and telecom communication space. Nikhil focuses on the interplay of technology, human lives, and commerce. He has substantial experience in advising companies on telecom, media, and technology laws in relation to their entry into India, operations, strategy, policy, regulatory issues, disputes, and business models. Welcome, Nikhil, to the discussion.
Thank you, Anu.
And now I would like to welcome Ms. Sonali Patnakar. She is a founder, CEO of Responsible Netism and the president of Ahan Foundation. She spearhead cyber wellness initiatives across India. She has conducted over 1,000 workshops on digital safety, empowered more than 1.8 million children and 1 million adults, and was instrumental in establishing India's first cyber wellness center in Goa. She works with police departments in Rajasthan, Goa, and Maharashtra, supporting their cyber initiatives. They have centers now. I was just talking to her before we started live streaming this, and they are starting new centers in Madhya Pradesh and Pune as well. Welcome, Ms. Sonali, to the discussion.
Thank you so much.
So before we start the discussion, a gentle reminder to the audience, please post your questions on the Zoom chat or YouTube comments. We will take up them towards the end. We have a 15 minutes dedicated for questions from the audience. So now we will deep dive into today's topic of discussion. So I think I would like to start with you, sir, Prakash, sir.
Yes, please.
So being someone who is in the law enforcement department, how do you feel? Like, we have a lot of, as I already mentioned, the NCRP is reporting increased deepfakes complaints against women, and almost 90% of the global deepfakes are pornographic, and that's a trend is mirrored in India as well. So we have several laws to address online violence against women and girls. We have provisions in the Information Technology Act. We have provisions in BNS, Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. Also, the POCSO Act is also having some provisions with respect to child sex abuse as well. But in practice, how effective are these laws? Like, do they bring real action on ground? Do we need a dedicated law separate than this existing provisions for online compacting these violence?
Yes, of now, we don't require additional law as such, but these laws can be updated. The problem with technology is as we know, every 6 months, something else comes up. So, for example, we are not talking about deepfakes that much 3 years back, isn't it? So 3 years down the lane, in 2022, we are not talking about it. But now everyone is speaking about AI-based images, videos, and all that. So the main trick is to the laws in India. What happens is generally we don't amend laws just like that. We take a lot of time. The turnaround in amendments, if you can see in any law, it takes a long time. To revise laws, it takes a long time. For example, POCSO came in 2012. We know after the Nirbhaya incident. So after that, it hasn't been amended till now. Any concrete amendments, particularly with respect to online content or online abuse as such. So similarly, the BNS, of course, since it is a new act, it has several provisions. But again, we need more, or every year we need to upgrade these laws. I think we don't need a separate law like POCSO. What is existing is fine. So, and those laws needs to be studied every year and updated every year. Specifically with respect to deepfakes you are mentioning, I think government is coming with an amendment to the IT rules, or the new IT rules concerning deepfakes. And that I had a preliminary understanding. It will be very comprehensive. For example, for one, it insists that every AI created image or video, or for that matter, anything, any content should have a watermark. So there's a watermark. Any AI created thing has a watermark. So it should have a watermark. So that is being insisted by law. And any content provider or any significant social media should ensure that those basic things are addressed. Or anybody using AI should host, okay, I have created this image or video using AI and hosting it. So that is coming up. I think very soon we will get that IT rules. We know IT rules is like laws again. That's fine. Concerning deepfake, it's fine. With respect to other use cases, I think government is in the way. Even POCSO Act amendment, I think is in the lines. They are trying to amend that. The discussions are happening at the government of India level. I foresee on the discussions. Some discussions happened with me as well, so I know what is happening at the government of India level. So the trick is to amend the laws, existing laws, strengthen the existing laws, and revisit the existing laws every year, if possible.
So, sir, as a supplementary question to that, how far our existing institutional mechanisms are good enough? Like we have cyber police stations, at least in Kerala, we have it in all districts.
Yeah.
We have cyber forensics. So, because in online crimes, I think the responsiveness and quickness of action is very important, right? So, how far we are able to move swiftly with respect to online crimes against
To be
women?
fair, cyber crimes have overwhelmed the policing landscape. Whether it is the central policing landscape or the state. We know the 99% of policing are being done by the states, as policing is a state subject as per the Indian Constitution. So what happens is nobody expected. Immediately after COVID, this has jumped, including financial cyber crimes. So everybody started focusing on financial cyber crimes, for example. But simultaneously, what has happened is crime against women and children have also risen like anything online. So it has been a challenge. For example, in Kerala, in cyber police stations, we are having enough police personnel, but that's not sufficient right now. We need at least 100 police officers practicing specially cyber crime investigation and looking to cyber complaints every district. What I mean is every policing district. So the policing revenue is different. So every policing district we need at least 100 officers. Wherever semi-urban or urban landscape like Kerala or any other place, we require this. Simply we require this. And if it is a major city like Mumbai or Chennai or Delhi or Kolkata or anything, any major city, I think they will require much more. That's just not good enough what we have. We need to create more. And policing is at least, police being at the bears the brunt first, isn't it? Any criticism bears the brunt first. So the police leadership at least are knowing the criticism and trying to mold the policies, trying to put proposals to the government. Policing is better off in this sphere. In case of response, okay, at least we are responding somehow or other. We are responding, but others needs to pull up their socks. Actually, forensics, for example, digital forensic is all over India. Is much more what I should say, much below capacities. Their capacities, and they don't have the required certification, for example. They need a certification called EEE, Examiner of Electronic Evidence. So they don't have the certification. Only 17 labs, as I know in India, have EEE certification. 17 labs can't do anything. That means all other labs, if they present electronic evidence, that won't be acceptable by a court of law in India. So these kind of issues are there, which the government of India, all the capacity building requires funding. The funding, we know also always the states are short of funding. The center has to fund it elaborately and then improve forensics part, digital forensics part. And that is one major area of capacity building. Along with that, what we need to do is we need to every cyber police station, because all are overrun with financial cyber crimes. So there need to be a separate wing within the cyber police station to specifically look into crime against women and children in the online space. If that is there, I think that would address some part of the problem. And then capacity building at all levels. We know judges and prosecutors also know very little about these crimes. They need to be taught. The counselors, as you were saying about one-stop centers, they don't know. So similarly, those working in those spaces, again, it's an ecosystem where all the stakeholders concerning any response to an online crime against women and girls must be educated, must be sufficiently aware, and address this problem. That's one part. Again, technology is another issue, I think, which we can come later. Yeah.
Sure, sir. Thank you for that response. And I agree to many of your points. Like, even I have tried 1930 when there was a personal issue, like a issue. And the responses were quite quick in Kerala. But during our workshops, what we understood was that in some states like Rajasthan and Jharkhand, the implementation is quite poor compared to the other states like Kerala and Telangana, because they have dedicated police stations and machinery already in place. Yeah, as you said, I think we need to level up the game there. We need to have more capacity building in that sense. So, so taking up from the cues from that, Nikhil, I would like to ask you about this issue. Like, what do you think about the current legal system compacting online violence against women and girls? Also, when we talk about the foreign jurisdiction, like many of these crimes are cross-border in nature. So we have the mutual legal assistance treaties. There are international treaties, but India is not party to any of those. So how far these framework is good enough to tackle these cross-border crimes?
So with respect to laws, I agreed with what Mr. Prakash said about the fact that, look, our laws are largely adequate when it comes to dealing with some of these crimes. You don't necessarily need new laws.
Okay.
The specific example that we spoke of in terms of deepfakes and what the government is planning with respect to information technology rules. Once it is, there are some issues with the rules, but at least it's if it's implemented in the direction that is going, that will just strengthen the enforcement mechanism. But I precisely agree, it's actually the enforcement and the empowerment of the enforcement agencies and the law enforcement agencies is what really need to happen to ensure that we have much faster access when it comes to takedown of this content, investigation, tracking down and identifying the perpetrators, etc. And one key element, we just spoke of, the Kerala police name always comes up when it comes to one of the better states when it comes to dealing with crimes such as a crime against women and children. But we don't see similar kind of responses happening from other states. I mean, true, Kerala does reasonably well. Delhi, Maharashtra, and Telangana are other examples where things move much faster. Chenipol is much faster, but that's not the experience throughout. And the interesting thing when it comes to this enforcement is often when it's cross-border in nature, that when it starts getting tricky. I mean, I've seen these instances becoming more trickier when it comes to enforcement in relation to financial crimes, because typically most of these online global platforms are much more sensitive when it comes to crime against women and children. So typically we tend to see much more faster response from them when crimes of such nature comes up. Having said that, it continues to be a challenge and there is no real solution to this problem per se. The one good thing that has come up is after the Information Technology Amendment in 2021, practically, though MLAT as a process exists, practically at least the bigger platforms face liability in India. Because of that reason, they comply with these requests much more faster. Now we have the Sahyog portal, which means that large number of platforms are onboarded onto Sahyog portal. They've agreed to comply with takedown requests and information requests through Sahyog portal. That's also ensured that, look, frankly, with all due respect to law enforcement agencies, not everyone acts responsibly. There are instances where there are phishing expeditions when it comes to these investigations. But with Sahyog portal, we've seen that that's become a little more streamlined. And there is much more, especially officials think twice before they ask for information. And often it's very targeted and direct, as it should be. So that has significantly improved the situation. But MLAT remains a challenge, right? Whenever there is cross-border enforcement, especially with respect to smaller platforms, because it's not like the bigger platforms are always on the other end. There are smaller platforms involved. They have the ability to fly under the radar. They often do not appear in court proceedings. Their strategy sometimes is not to appear before court of law. These sort of situations have created issues where enforcement of these issues remain a challenge. Now, another good thing which has happened is, in fact, the new SOP, the new standard operating procedure when it comes to non-consensual imagery on the internet. which is in fact a welcome step after the Madras High Court judgment that has been put in place by the Ministry of Information Technology. That's another good step in this direction. Would that be respected by all platforms that operate on the internet? The answer is no. But if you look at the bigger players, they are largely cooperative, they're largely compliant, they are ready to give in to these requests, especially when it comes to non-consensual imagery and crime against women and children. Also due to the heightened obligation on some of them. For instance, the social media intermediaries who have more than 5 million users are subject to additional requirements. So those players are doing much more than the rest of the players. So these are all the welcome trends that we've seen in the past. Now, with the deepfake amendments in the IT rules coming in, I think we'll be in a much more stronger position. I truly agree with Mr. Prakash when he said that, look, there needs to be more awareness in the system itself, starting with judges. So my experience with some of the police stations in some rural parts of India has not very promising. You can't blame them because they are often have different operational challenges compared to the police departments in urban centers. They sometimes do not know which provisions to use. They get confused by deepfake. They don't know if deepfake videos can also be booked under the laws relating to non-consensual imagery and fraud and impersonation, amongst other things. They're very confused about it. Sometimes there are also other practical challenges that they encounter with respect to tracking of keys, right? I mean, for instance, the way we work, most of the video generation models, whether it's Aura or Gemini or whatever it is, they rely on the underlying LLMs, which are operated by larger players, but then there will be wrappers on top of it. So they don't know how to reach out to get actual information about the person who's in fact originated that message. These are some of the challenges that we face, which means that we need more education, more awareness to be spread across the ecosystem. So across the police, across the judiciary, the other ancillary ecosystem, like Mr. Prakash mentioned with respect to forensics and others. So that's an ongoing process which will require all of us to work together. And I think one thing I can say is, look, I've been doing this for close to 20 years. Is a sea change in the way in which the police and law enforcement responds to such requests, right? They're often overwhelmed with volumes, but the wonder that they used to have on their face when they started practicing has now disappeared. They're very well aware, especially in bigger urban centers. It's overall a much better experience than what it used to be. So I'll pause here, Anu.
Thank you for the comments, Nikhil. But I would also bring to your attention that in a recent judgment, like Chief Justice Suryakant proposed establishment of an autonomous and impartial regulatory body for online content. So, which is independent of the industry interest and direct state influence. He also suggested using of Aadhaar or PAN-based age verification to restrict the minors' access to adult content and all that. So what is your take on these things?
So look, I think these are, I would say I would sort of separate these two into two different issues. So first is on the aspect relating to online moderation of content. Look, I'm not sure how that will help us in terms of cracking crime against women and children online, right? I don't think there is any need for an independent autonomous authority to really look at and figure out and come up with standards on what is a crime against a woman and children. I mean, any reasonable man could figure out when somebody is being abused or is being harmed on a particular content generation. And any responsible citizen in the country should be able to make a call with respect to it. Unfortunately, the problem with coming out with these mechanisms is that it may lead to curtailment of free speech. So you should trust the citizens to do the right thing and trust the law enforcement to book the perpetrators, because I don't think any perpetrator is coming out of the content which is in the gray zone, at least most of the time. So I don't think we should equate these two. There could be other questions relating to moderation, etc. I don't think we should deal with at least this extreme form of content, because I think most people, most platforms that you speak to, most of them are in alignment with respect to crime against women and children online and the content related crime against women and children online. So there is hardly very little which is left to gray. On the second point, it's a very valid point, but there are deeper issues involved in relation to children's access to platforms. It is very important that children are protected online. It is very important that children's access to harmful online content is restricted and controlled in a certain manner. You're all aware of online predatory and grooming gangs which exist across the globe, including the ones like the 746 and whatnot, which have this habit of grooming children, and their first act often starts with exposing them to pornographic material, and that's how typically grooming starts. So it's very important that at least the content which is so-called the adult content should be behind some sort of a wall, which children should be prevented access to. UK has recently implemented something along these lines. Australia, as you know, has gone a bigger step in terms of restricting social media, which is in fact a much larger debate. That's obviously not along the same lines, but it's probably an extreme step where we as a country stands. But when we try to implement this, one thing that we need to think through is the fact that, look, we should be very narrow when it comes to enforcing these things. Otherwise, children also access content online with the perspective of getting education. It cannot be a large gating criteria, which is a one-fit-all rule which applies to everyone, like what the Data Protection Act says. And also, when you do it, when you try to prove someone's age, you also, in a way, try to also ascertain a person's identity. When you especially try and get a verifiable parental consent, that increases and that creates other problems and possibilities. It also needs to be done in a manner which sort of protects the person's privacy. So it's a very loaded question, but I am all for a gate for creating a gating around pornographic content online and ensuring that children do not get access to such content. One way could be by way of a token issued against a financial instrument, because that's a simple rule. I mean, someone under 18 do not have a financial instrument, right? So these are some of the steps that we could think of to ensure that children are protected online.
So I think Sonali will be able to give us a perspective here, because she is working among the children and supporting the law enforcement mechanisms in many of the states. Sonali, so since you're actively working in the grassroots among the survivors, what is their perspective of these things, the laws and the institutions?
I totally agree with what Nikhil and Ms. Prakash just mentioned, and their experience about dealing with digital harm across platforms. So we've been working for 13 years in the space of providing support to survivors and educating people about online safety protocols. And a couple of issues that were already discussed earlier about one critical element that we bring in is police apathy is only because of lack of awareness and training within the 2 tier, 3 tier cities, or even lower than that, where people are not aware of, or the law enforcement agencies are not aware of how to address issues related to cybercrime, and also grappling with the high speed, or the jet speed technology interventions that are coming in, or the modus operandi changing every 3 months, and the inability to cope with newer things coming in, because we're still grappling what is coming up and what we're doing with now. So that pace is hitting everybody very badly. So we've also seen across the country where understanding distress offline is somewhere understandable, but to fathom what it is to be distressed through online platforms is not very acceptable, or is minimized as, and is not validated as an experience within places or within platforms and in the law enforcement systems, because victimization is often done because of what you've done online, and you're shamed. You are therefore targeted for something that has happened to you online, and that has been a general statement issued by most of the survivors that we've been working with, that people don't understand that it could happen to anybody, and I have been victimized on this platform, be it a senior citizen, be it women, all the more, young girls even more, and children also. So re-victimization is something that we've been struggling with in terms of not validating their experience or minimizing the experiences they've had online, and not understanding what the distress could cause. The other element totally missing is the damage, the measurement of the psychological impact of that damage on the victims. So we've seen people having face financial frauds, are losing money, or on social media or other platforms have been bullied, are going through various kind of distress, but the impact on their psychological well-being is not measured at all, and we do not have systems to provide ground level support to anybody facing this kind of distress. And which is why the cyber wellness centers were launched, where we thought cyber mental well-being in cyberspace needs to be given more relevance and importance, and interventions on. Along with that, we've seen on ground a lot of times um, training and awareness across stakeholders, be it one-stop centers, be it organizations working on the community level with women and children, are unaware of digital harm as a concept, and also the newer things that are coming in, or newer forms of crimes that are coming in at jet speed. So there is definitely a divide. We've also seen the age gap, where we are having very senior people who are not very comfortable with technology, trying to impart knowledge to children who are a very high technology quotient, and that divide is too wide for us to understand. So we are talking to a bunch of people, younger people, who know a lot more than us, and we're trying to work with them to come at par, come at pace, come on the level to be able to combat a situation. So that equation somewhere needs to break uh, fast, so that we will never be able to catch up with younger people in terms of their TQ or their technology quotient, but at least be more accommodating and understand what the entire landscape of cyber violence or digital harm is. With children, we've seen a lot of times the adventure that kicks in when you meet somebody online, or the ability to be anonymous on a platform and do whatever you feel like, and seek some kind of probably support, or or stage what you are good at on that platform to just get validation and acceptance, is very, very high. And we see a lot of sexual radicalization happening through platforms, be it children, be it young girls, women, boys, everybody. I think very extremist views, very polarized views, and very, very clearly radicalization, especially sexual radicalization on platforms that is taking place. And children are very opinionated nowadays. Children are brilliant, there is no doubt about that, but they are opinionated because of the content that they are consuming. Unfortunately, we do not have a mechanism that will counter what they consume, because we don't have people to talk to them about it. We don't have educators equipped with technology to counter what they see. They themselves don't know what is happening in cyberspace. So there is a huge gap there also. With the younger people, I think what they see online and what they perceive, how they perceive, and how they imply and apply that to their real lives is another emerging challenge that we've seen. Now with AI coming in, we're on a different tangent, suddenly working with how young people are seeking emotional support online through chatbots, and how that is impacting not just them, but it is also impacting other set of mental health professionals, because they are being victimized on platforms like these. So we are dealing with a set of different cases altogether, and validating chatbot experiences, where you are also being groomed to some extent, you're also being fed content which is age inappropriate. How is a child or a young adult expected to to differentiate between what guidance they're getting is validated, is authorized, is fair, and how do you then discriminate that, and how do you make that person choose the right or safer options for them, is another major challenge that we've seen. In younger girls, we've seen a lot of re-victimization leading to shame, guilt, fear, and no lack of reporting. We've also seen a rise in reporting through platforms or takedown through platforms, which is a very welcoming move. But again, it is not contextual, it is not relevant to our cultural context. For instance, we've had thousands of cases across months where my picture is, created into a meme with another guy and posted, and that doesn't fit any community guideline and it cannot be taken down. I'm getting married tomorrow. So these kind of threats are still prevalent across the country, especially in urban, semi-urban, rural, tribal areas also. And these are the ones that do not fit the cultural context of their community guidelines, and they definitely need to be worked upon.
Yeah, thank you. That was quite comprehensive. So I think, as you rightly said, that there is a huge gap in the even when you talk about the generational gap in understanding the technology the changes that are there, the over reliance on chatbots for psychological support and everything. Yes. So, Prakash sir, since you were also part of the Cyber Dom project, where we have a PPP model to combat many of these issues, like how far do you think collaborations with private enterprises or startups or NGOs, for that matter, if we have a formal association with this, how far we can improve the capacity gaps?
Yeah, I agree totally with you. We need a multi-agency partnerships, public-private partnerships. So that's what has not been proactive in India or lagging. That's where the Cyberdome has been very, very successful in Kerala. So again, with the unit partnerships, the police can't do, or one agency can't do everything alone. It needs the support of everyone in addressing these issues, any form of cyber crimes or any form of cybersecurity issue. So we need to work with, for example, technology institutions, whether the significant social media intermediaries, or for that matter, NGOs. NGOs both at the local level and the national level and even the international level. We need to work with all of them. Again, with academic institutions, do research, conduct hackathons, so all that. So we need to keep doing that and build a robust partnership and form systems that last for a long time. So through that, we can make here India. What you see here is most of the hotlines are government run, isn't it? Most of the hotlines are government run. It's everything is centralized, government based, not much of partnerships, not at that level what we expect. Compared to some Western countries, other places where the NGOs, for example, are much more proactive. In UK, for example, the NGOs actively do a lot of work, government work they do. So that actually lessens the workload of the government. And active partnerships, I'm saying what active partnerships they do. Similarly, in India, we need to create such institutions. Cyberdome and CCC, even the CCSC, the Center Against Online Sexual Abuse in Kerala, is again a proactive model where a partnership role helps. Technology institutions can always give you free of cost. The NGOs can pitch in with their experiences, in awareness, in bringing technology institutions on board, all that. And academic institutions can give you research. We need to do research. We need to create. Sometimes the tools which are available exactly in the market don't fit what you actually need to address cybercrime investigation or the issues concerning that. So we need to create our own tools for India. And for that, we need to enter into collaborations. Even what happens in India is, funnily, even the central government institutions, they work in silos. They don't work with cooperation with states. So everybody tend to work in their comfort spaces, which is silos. They don't barge into. Kerala has been dramatic in that sense that we created the Cyberdome in 2016, much before what anybody could think of. And it has been a highly successful model. So, but this needs to be brought in the pan-India perspective, and I can create a lot of awareness. What we are talking earlier also, there are a lot of gaps across India. So we can't compare, for example, Northeastern India to what South India, how aware South India is, for example. So even within India, there are huge number of resource gaps, capacity building gaps, and that needs to be brought together. And for that, this multi-agency approach should be promoted by the government of India and by every state. All the NGOs has to be encouraged. For example, we really have good NGOs working in surveys. Now Sonali is here. So like that, there are a lot of NGOs working. We need to cooperate with them. Like if I'm the police officer, I would be love to work with Sonali, for example, on citizen wellness or cyber wellness. So similarly, anybody and everybody should do that. And if we can do that and build a multi-agency partnerships, I think it will be helping us moving forward in this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sonali was also talking about the community guidelines and the issues with respect to the definitions used by different platforms. So Nikhil, what do you think about that? Like, because there are a lot of conversations regarding this, like because different jurisdictions define, they have different definitions in their laws. Also, these platforms, for example, the dating platforms have a different definition for harassment. Then we have the Meta and the other big platforms. They have different definitions for many of these community guidelines, like what they define. So what do you think? Like, there's this lack of unity, let platforms dodge responsibility, or how can we mitigate these challenges?
So look, it's there are a couple of aspects here. Look, I mean, each of these platforms, at least the larger ones, are global platforms, right? So when you have global platforms, they are subject to rules and regulations of different countries. So it's, to be fair to them, it's impossible for them to come up with a standard definition which works across the globe. And given that they are global platforms, they definitely do not want to give an experience which is different across the globe as well, right? So it needs to be a unified experience. It needs to be a unified technology experience and a human experience on their platform. So naturally, these platforms' definitions and their community standards would differ. They also stand for different things, right? I mean, for instance, the stand that X would have on free speech, you've seen it changed over time as different owners took over, right?
Yes.
So similarly, the stand that X or a Facebook would have on speech is not the standard that an Apple has with respect to speech, right? So there are different corporate philosophies. There are different shareholder and leadership philosophies. Just like each individual, like we all have different philosophies and different beliefs, including political beliefs, they have different stands with respect to speech and moderation and other things. I don't think it's necessarily, it may create issues in terms of enforcement, but I don't think we can ask them to follow a strict one-fit-all approach when it comes to their community guidelines. But having said that, they obviously need to treat law like law. It doesn't matter what their policies are, their internal policies are. If a law defines hateful content or hate speech in a particular manner, then they are bound by that law. And often the difference is that when users make a complaint, this sometimes becomes an issue, and the user generated complaints, when it comes up, the enforcement is often difficult. But like I said, I've rarely seen this becoming a gray issue when it comes to crime against women and children. It becomes more of an issue on aspects relating to defamation, aspects relating to the test of obscenity per se, right? A non-consensual imagery is different from the test of obscenity, as you know, right? So when it comes to these terms which are meant to be subjective, is when I have seen, my personal experience, I could be wrong, seen instances of different platform policies applying differently. Similarly, the test with respect to something which violates a person's privacy is a test that different platforms would apply differently. But I think they will all be in unison when it comes to an approach with respect to a child abuse material, for sure, right? So I don't think it is in my experience, I have not seen it becoming such a big issue. Having said that, look, their approach and their reactions to these content also differs due to different circumstances. And my personal experience, if if any of these platforms have got a serious discussion with Indian law enforcement agencies, including the Ministry of Home Affairs, they're bound to comply. They're bound to get onto the Sahyog portal. So typically when it comes to, when it leads to really an enforcement action and liability against them is when they start complying with it, right? So I would say that, look, that sort of a threat often helps in actual practice. And we should not equate that with ease of doing business, because this is subject matter of someone's life, and especially when it comes to enforcement of criminal laws. And in my personal opinion, always those discussions have helped these platforms to come around and start complying with it. And honestly, those days of tech exceptionalism and US exceptionalism are gone, right? So we are living in a new era, and most people are aware of these issues.
Yeah, Sonali, what is your take on this issue?
So both from the receiving end to take down and from we've heard it from platforms, we've heard it from survivors, both ways. I quite agree that there has been a phenomenal shift in the thought process of, and probably a unanimous decision on what definitely must be taken down, and some areas that are still gray in terms of what cannot be taken down, cultural context and other things. But there has been a phenomenal shift in their acceptance to take down cases, look at time, and also respond to cases in time. At the same time, I also feel it is challenging for them for platforms, especially because the numbers at which reporting is taking place today is going to be even worse with AI, growing gradually. And they've also shared a lot of challenges that they face in terms of helping people understand what is NCI, what is not NCI. And that's where the liability of awareness then lies onto the user. And we've been screaming on top of our lungs to put this liability on the platform of giving a walkthrough to their users. Now, if I am on a particular platform and I am going to sign in into a platform, why can't it be a mandate to walk through the rules which cannot be skipped? It's as basic and simple as that. You just orient your users on what safety guidelines are, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And I don't think it needs rocket science to do that. But I believe a lot of times there is a will, there is a way, but probably no will. And they will come around it eventually when there is more pressure built up. Along with that, I believe that we are all not together again in terms of all stakeholders on what information to disseminate to people, how to disseminate that, because it's changing so often that we need to just keep to live up to whatever is coming in next. For instance, digital arrest, and now suddenly something new has come up. So we are still coping with digital arrest, and now we're moving on to something totally different. So that pace is something that is hitting us very, very badly. Along with that, uh, because we've been partners with Google, Snap, Meta, and others, we've seen that their teen safety policies are getting more and more stringent. They are more welcoming to participation from the law enforcement, from civil society organizations who worked on ground to define what child and teen safety means. They've taken a lot of roundtables on parental consent, on age gating and age verification, which is another issue altogether that we can keep talking about for the day. But they are making some amount of effort to streamline what trust and safety means. And honestly, initially I felt this was again a farce, because when you say trust and safety, you're going to be cool and you're going to be, you're making an effort to show that the platform is doing well. But we've seen efforts that they're taking into building some more trust. Trust is going to happen, but their focus is on user experience and not safety. And that is something that I want to clearly put out here, that their focus will always be on user experience, and that needs to shift to safety by design, or it needs to shift to safety as a critical element of platform usage.
Thank
I know,
you.
just to add on, I mean,
Yes,
so,
yes.
just to add on here, it's very interesting. I mean, there's a recent New York Times interview with a CEO of a platform which is a gaming platform for largely targeted at children. I'm not saying the name here, but encourage everyone to sort of watch that and how they approach safety. I agree with Sonali. I mean, their general approach, and at some level, look, these companies are all believe in the Silicon Valley philosophy of each to one itself and libertarianism and the fact that everybody should be given the freedom, including children, to do what they want. They come from that frame of mind, and when they come from that frame of mind, they try to move fast and break things, and safety is not a priority on their mind. And Careless People is another brilliant book on this to see what how Facebook has dealt with safety over the years.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. Thank you. So I think we had a lot of discussions around the child safety as well as the gaps. I think we extensively discussed on these things. So as a final question, I would like to know, like, what do you think could be some actionable recommendations to improve the system as of now? Like, when it comes to awareness, again, the awareness is quite low, as we already discussed, and that was quite a pertinent finding of our state level workshops as well, because whoever is dealing at the grassroots level, they are also not aware about many of the technical terms that we were using during this webinar. Second, regarding prevention, I think prevention strategies have to be strengthened, but as well as prosecution. So what do you think could be some of the actionable strategies that we could adopt at this point to improve or at least to keep up the pace of the changes in the technology, which is affecting women and girls? So I think we'll start with Prakash sir.
Yeah, awareness, again, what we do, awareness is very limited, isn't it? Some program, somebody brings you to some program anywhere in India, some enterprising police officer or enterprising somebody comes with the program. It is never a very well planned awareness exercise, a large scale awareness, targeted awareness. Like you see that smoking ad, isn't it? The smoking ad, anti-smoking ad was so contagious, it's reduced smoking largely. You don't see that kind of targeted awareness here. So actually, we need to do a lot of targeted awareness and widespread awareness in every sphere. For example, now the normal TV thing won't work. So you need to go into every social media. You need to involve every social media intermediary, every fellow who is involved to make them give this awareness in a large manner in some way or other. So they do a lot of advertisements, isn't it, for money. So let them do for this, for the government, for the welfare of the, for online protection of women and children. This, again, it's very, very less, I think, studied, this awareness, how we can do an effective awareness, in fact. So that's one part. The another area is capacity building, like in my own agency, and I will talk about the total criminal justice system. I will not talk about just police, the total criminal justice system, all the members, all the stakeholders, the capacity building needs to be improved. For that, for example, specific areas of forensics, we need a lot of funding. That has to come from the central government. So again, funding is little. Thirdly, specialist units. In law enforcement, we need to go specialist units. Slowly, sometimes the generalized units are not able to handle, not able to be aware. We need a state level specialist units against these kind of things. And again, at the district level as well. So this is again required. And we know when the online space is so popular, the misogyny and lack of sex education is another major problem I see. So why a man or anybody attempts to harm a woman or a girl, why the thing comes? So the gender norms, I think it's all, the misogyny is highly amplified in the online space. So sex education, it's not taught. It's not taught in India at all, as I see. It's very, very minuscule. And one experiment in Trivandrum is successful, by Kanal, an experiment by Kanal on sex education for children and for the teachers. successful. But that's only a very, very minute part. Sex education is totally undervalued and underdone in India. And these are the issues, major issues which I see. Again, multi-agency approach is another area where we need to work. Everybody, we need a lot of volunteers. We have a huge youth, isn't it? Huge population. Why can't we engage our youth proactively in this sphere to create awareness, to make them ambassadors of all this? So that's again using our own youth as a positive, proactive step. Yeah, these are the few things I would say.
Yeah, Goa has a program like what you said. Like when we were conversing with the police officials of Goa, they have launched something called Cyber Yotha program in colleges and universities, where they train the youngsters to report cases, to teach their, I mean, at least give an awareness to their partners or whoever it is to understand what is the online space. So that was quite a promising program. I think in Kerala Police we have something called Kutu also, right? Yeah.
We have Kutu is a online sexual abuse program against that. But we have a cybersecurity volunteers, cybersecurity volunteers in Kerala as well. But how effective is that? How proactive are they?
Yeah.
That's a larger question we need to look at.
So when I was talking to one of the government officials in Kerala Police itself, so what he was saying is that even if they are doing a lot of funding towards awareness campaigns and others, it's not reaching the right audience. Mostly who are reporting the crimes are people who are not being targeted through these kind of awareness campaigns. So he was talking about that data gap, like where they are failing to target the advertisements or the awareness campaigns. Yeah, so I think that is something that we need to look into further.
Yeah.
So, Nikhil, what is your take on this? Like how we can improve some of these systems?
I think Mr. Prakash has, reasonably covered most of the points, but maybe just to add on, right? So I think education of parents are probably one of the key missing pieces, right? Because and also look, as parent of young children, I can tell you that look, it's in this day and age, it's very difficult to keep them away from screens, but try and educate parents about the fact that screen time should be a family activity or a exposed family activity rather than making them look into smaller screens, because that's difficult to track. That's where also perpetrators try and groom and target children. Secondly, one key aspect is the fact that look, it's easy to say this, but the atmosphere at your home, because these perpetrators, these abusers usually target children with confidence issues, children with other psychological issues due to situations in their family and otherwise. They specifically know how to target children with low self-esteem, which is typical to all sort of bullying, but online bullying, it's to a different degree. There are typical signs that one can watch out for. So I think parental education is a significant part of the puzzle, and especially in this day and age where a large number of population, both parents are working and children, and they just give away their devices to children as a pastime, or to at least get rid of their annoyance, often leads to these situations. So I think parental education is probably one key missing piece here. The other aspect, of course, is look, there should be a more awareness about what are the sort of crimes which are happening. So, for instance, Mr. Prakash spoke about the anti-smoking advertisement. Similarly, right now, I think the digital arrest awareness right now has caused quite a significant change in the society, right? I mean, and how quickly are folks aware of it? I mean, there's a large role played by the media, by telecom companies, by government enforcing some of these regulations. Similarly, we need a broad-based campaign on keeping safety online, or children online, or women online. Also, at the same time, instead of, look, it's always a catch up with criminals. But a large number of online crimes are actually not committed by the standard, the regular criminals that you see, because they believe that they'll not be identified or tracked online, right? Or somebody wouldn't go after them. So, which means that a stronger enforcement message, even if enforcement probably is difficult, the fact that you will be caught, right, or the fact that you may be caught, and the fact that your life or career will actually be put on spot, is a message, I think, that needs to be delivered very strongly, because often online misogyny and attacks have a very casual undertone towards it, often perpetrated by some of these social media influencers and movies and probably some of the other things that we see in the society as well, right? So there is some casualness to online misogyny, which to a large extent, even if they are misogynistic, the point is that, look, keep it in your heart. I mean, don't show it on other people, right? So that sort of message, and the fact that police is watching you, will actually help in curbing a lot of these bad behaviors, especially by the young adults, because evidence shows that it's actually a large number of young adults who actually indulge or start doing this. So even if you look at the examples of 764, it started by somebody who was in his adolescent, right? It's one of the most famous world famous crime gang which targets children are started when they were in its late adolescence. So I think so these are all kind of messaging that that helps in preventing and ensuring that the space is much safer for our children and
Mhm. So who do you think should take the responsibility here? Like, whether
So I
should
think, see, look, it's when you say responsibility, we are all responsible, right? So we are all responsible, and look,
yes.
to the extent that I'm glad to meet some folks from this ecosystem working together. So if there is any way that you need any sort of assistance from me or my organization to help you in this process, I'll be happy to do that. So similarly, I think we all have that responsibility. There's only so much that state can do. State obviously has a larger role here. But at the same time, we are all responsible for creating and ensuring that the next generation online. And frankly, look, we need to understand that we are moving to a different technological arena altogether, where there'll be more connected devices. We'll be living in a different realm of AR and mixed reality very shortly, right? So in the sense that even some of these harassments, which are things which we may even display, sort of dismiss as online taunts, may actually be much more real in some time, right? And given all this, there are chances of more criminals exploiting or data which is online, I don't know if you've ever been to this Oculus world of Meta. Sort of things that online harassment that happens there is a different level which has got a very real feel to it. So these sort of so this different reality with that we'll all be exposed to in some time means that we all to work a lot harder, and the responsibility is on all of us. Platforms obviously has a much higher responsibility, and the way to hold them responsible is through constant interface with law enforcement, activism by the civil society and judiciary. That's the only way to hold them responsible when it comes to this.
Thank you. Sonali, what is your take on this?
We are called responsible netism. We have no choice but to be responsible
But
for the
to be
work that we do.
responsible. Yes.
So we've taken the entire board of everybody on us,
Yeah.
and we're doing the work that we're doing. But there are a lot of, we're very hopeful about, sorry, a lot of things that are coming up now. And we definitely feel, let's stick to our expertise. For instance, if it is law enforcement, that their work is to ensure legal interventions are done. If we are into awareness, let's collaborate and let us look at the awareness factor of it. So everybody is reinventing the wheel, jumping into each other's spaces. I feel this collaboration and this acceptance of your expertise will also mean a lot. For instance, then we are not overburdening any one particular institution. Let awareness and law enforcement work together, let reporting and somebody else come together. So when we're doing this together, the burden is definitely lessened. We're also getting people with expertise and experience on board. So it then becomes a little more strategic in terms of intervention, and it is also more planned and effective. We definitely want to see a rise in accountability and reporting transparencies, because that is something that is missing across the country. We don't know what happens to our cases when we are reported. So then reporting is less. The amount of cases that are actually, that actually get on to hearing stages, or even there is action taken, is barely less than 10%. We're not even talking about people getting money back. So, in terms of the accountability and transparency in the reporting mechanism, not just from platforms but from law enforcement, is a change that we are desperately wanting to see. So that one, you build trust in the system, you encourage people to report, and you see what is happening to the reports that you're generating. People are not reporting because they don't believe anything will happen about you reporting to a platform or to a system, and that needs to definitely change. Um, we are looking at using success stories to to inspire people. So when I say that I have been facing digital harm, and I did this ABC, and I sought help, and this is what helped me cope with it. While we only talk about distress, we are also talking about building hope in people to survive. That's again a phenomenal shift in the way you portray or build resilience in people, because there is hope that you look forward to. I'm not telling you there are 50 lakh gaya hai, tu marne wala hai. But there are people who've lost money, who've got it back, who build their resilience to cope with the situation. And these success stories will certainly help build more trust. Along with that, I also feel I totally agree on the collective responsibility and collectively working towards combating digital harm. Here, I believe children need to also be involved in decision making for their own safeguard and safety. Parents, of course, but parents don't half the time know what their children are doing online. How much can you peep into their lives? So the entire context is control, not care. And we want to shift that from control to care. So we are worried. We are worried because of some harm that will come to you. And so we want to care about you. We don't want to control your life. For instance, a small thing that a kid told me was, why is it parental control? They're wanting to control something they don't understand at all. Which is very fair, because you again want to control our lives. So can that shift from control be to more care, which is also more inclusive and involving children in making safer choices and giving them the responsibility also. So as users, it is their responsibility which needs to be inculcated today at grade 1 and not at grade 10 when they've been there, done that. So systems and a life skill program. So we've been working with a lot of schools with life skill programs on counseling, which start at grade 1, where you understand what body autonomy, what body boundaries are. So you don't have to wait till you are abused or you go through a bad experience. And these values are applicable to your online and offline life both. So these body boundaries or body autonomy, or the power to take responsibility for no violation of your rights, of your safety, also lies with the user. These are children or young adults who need to be taken very seriously on that, and their thoughts need to be a part of the policy.
Thank you. I think all of you have comprehensively given a lot of suggestions and how we need to take this forward. And so since we have some questions from the audience, I think we'll accommodate few of them. And I think the questions are also carrying whom should be asked to. So my first question is, given the difficulty in identifying the original source of deepfakes, should India prioritize indigenous detection tools or legal reforms, and how should these be sequenced? So, who do you like? I think the question is to Nikhil.
So look, I think that's what the government, the Committee on AI Governance had suggested, that to come up with indigenous deepfake detection tools, etc. Right? But having said that, look, you've seen the Will Smith video, right? Eating spaghetti to what deepfakes is possible to do right now. So I think at some level, we all find it very difficult to detect deepfakes. Using algorithms, you may be able to. But the best way to do this is for the industry to come up with the standards. It could be a different, similar to what the whole Japanese companies. If you know Sony, Nikon, Canon, they're all Japanese companies. When they came up with photography in the beginning, they came up with this whole concept of a digital fingerprint or a fingerprint within their photos, within which you can figure out where the photo originated from. So similarly, the industry should take the first step there. We can invest and find out new technologies with respect to detection, but technology will move very fast and we'll find it very difficult to catch up with that. So ideally, each of these platforms, which are AI developers who concentrate on image and video generation, audio generation, should ideally be responsible and coming out with their own standards and then make them available for the law enforcement to also crack these. So I think that's probably a better way to approach this problem rather than the government being prescriptive. We should obviously strengthen our mechanisms for detection. That's precisely what the government is planning with respect to the AI, the high empowered committee that they've constituted has recommended as part of Bharat AI guidelines.
So there is also another question on data protection law, because the new data protection law is in action. So how far that law is complementing the whole conversation that we are having today?
So I think one aspect is, hopefully we will have a verifiable parental consent, which means that there will be a much better gating to some of these platforms by the children. There will be a limit on behavioral tracking with respect to children, other than for ensuring their safety, etc. But at the same time, look, this verifiable parental consent is a double-edged sword, because the way in which the Data Protection Act envisages it is, unfortunately, it will have an effect of cutting off access of large number of children to online as well, right? I mean, it doesn't make a differentiation between an educational website and YouTube Kids versus an adult website, right? So it's a very broad brush that they have tried to implement verifiable consent, and it's got other implications. How many parents are in India are able to give really meaningful consent for themselves, leave it on to their children's activity. And I think Sonali mentioned the fact that, look, children are much smarter than the parents most of these times. So they will probably find ways to get around it, but I think it is what it is. So I think the data protection framework will definitely complement some of these points. It may help us in terms of what it also does is it interesting, it doesn't require consent when you want to when you're using it for prevention or detection of crime. So which means that there could be a darker side to it, but the advantage is the fact that, look, maybe some of these things with respect to policing and prevention of these crimes may become easier as well, right? So it definitely complements and supplements, and it definitely will lead to new problems that we are not imagining at this point of time.
Okay, yeah. So there is another question to Mr. Prakash. With digital forensics still inefficient and insufficient, and cyber crimes rising rapidly, what immediate priorities should India focus on to strengthen the forensic infrastructure at the ground level? So what specific measures could be taken at that? Because you were mentioning about just 17 labs in India and all that.
Yeah. Forensic capacities needs to be built across India. That needs to be done, particularly with respect to digital forensics. One is, like I told, basic certification. If you put that AAA certification in place, every lab, for example, every lab, forensic lab, now only a government forensic lab can be certified. So at least every government forensic lab in India needs to be certified as examiner of electronic evidence. Then they'll be able to. That means the certification doesn't come just like that. They need to have the necessary tools and everything. There's a whole prescription which they need to follow. Again, that's not getting done. That's not quicker. That needs to be expedited. Once that's done, at least every lab will have sufficient tools in place and will have the manpower to do that. The second aspect about it is, of course, the capacities of who are doing cyber forensics right now. Are they really updated? Are they able to do all this? The cyber forensics as such. So that needs to be done. There's a huge number of backlog of cases, isn't it? A huge backlog of cases of cyber crimes, not alone against online abuse against women and children, but overall, the huge number of backlogs that needs to be addressed. How to address that? That's again another issue. Again, special rules. There are special rules of recruitment for cyber forensic scientists. Do you know in many states it's still physics and chemistry. It's not forensic science. They don't study cyber. They don't study cyber at all. They studied physics and chemistry, and they can apply. So what is the education standards of forensic institutions? We have NFSU, right? But apart from NFSU, what is the standard of forensic education? That is another aspect. And then for all this, we need funding. We need the DFSS, which is the Directorate of Forensic Sciences at the MHA, to be proactive and pitch more funds into the states, and also handhold where it needs handholding. It needs handholding, and then improving overall standards. Yeah, I think these are some of the forensics part I can speak. Apart from that, one more point: R&D. Research development is very, very poor in every aspect of cyber in India, within India. If you go anywhere in Europe or US, you will have a lot of genuine research happening in various ways, even in forensics. If you search for forensics into cyber forensics, what research has been done in India is very little. Then you need to go to UK or Europe and find some really good papers. So we need a lot of R&D. If any student is listening or anybody is listening interested in this, R&D is another sphere we need to, yeah.
Thank you. And it was quite interesting to learn that physics and chemistry is the education standards. Okay, yeah. Next, one question to Sonali. Sonali, the question is, it might be challenging for adults to technically understand how cyberspace works, but creating an environment where children and young people can at least express their feelings and experiences with regard to cyberspace to a trusted adult can be built. Cultural factors are one of the major barriers to building such open spaces for dialogue. So what are some urgent and predominant culture or mindset changes that needs to happen among adults to at least get to know from children and young people about what is happening in the cyber world? So do you have any existing strategies that you're using on ground, Sonali?
There is no magic wand. It is a very tedious, long-term, heartbreaking process because we are working with children and our own children. So there are many ways that we or strategies that we use. I think our own mindset, understanding digital spaces from children's lens is something that is missing again altogether. How and why do children view cyberspace as what it is, and why do they need to be there? What are the struggles that they have, in terms of peer pressure? If I am the only child who's not online while the whole world is, how do I cope? And I am trying to listen to my parents to say I don't need to be there because they don't want me to be there, but the whole world is there. So coping with so many things at a time, understanding what digital safety or what digital platforms are from the lens of children, I think is the first step towards accepting that they need to be there. Two, I also feel prioritizing psychological safety in that space. So having these conversations at home about what safety means, whether it is offline or online. Who is the one trusted adult you can go to when you seek help? And parents, I think I hate saying this, but don't be offended if it is not you, because usually children don't share this with parents. It is always a third party, either a friend or somebody else who comes into the picture to help. And why is this? Because of the guilt that they carry, of how your parent will respond while you report a distress to them. And the blame shame game comes in altogether. And then, therefore, there is even more resilience or resistance on reporting. Cultural factors, barriers, of course, are there. There is no open communication within homes. We've seen that across economic, social, cultural verticals where these conversations are not had. Like Prakash sir rightly mentioned, conversations on sex are, they just don't exist. And it's not about sex or gender. It is about inclusion. It is about safety. You may prefer to be whoever you like to be, but your safety and your psychological safety is important. And these conversations have to really start very early. Again, from not from the perspective of control, but from the perspective of care. Understanding the lens of digital harm, what it could do to your child, how your child could be impacted, how your young adult could be impacted. Now, telling a 16-year-old not to have a relationship online, gone are the days. We are having 10-year-old having relationships, multiple relationships online, because that's the exposure that they have. So no ban works, no restrictions work. I think it is a collaborative. So we have something called the internet family contract, because you are equal within the home. And rules are not only meant for children, they're also supposed to be for adults in the family. And we've seen families where these communication on internet safety contract for the house work, because when you're reprimanded, anybody who's broken the rule is reprimanded. And when you're awarded, anybody who's done something good is awarded. So there is fairness, there is inclusion, there is space to have these conversations, to be heard. We don't hear children, or we don't hear young people talk at all. And they don't express because we don't express ourselves. So it's like a different parenting world altogether, which we are not prepared for. And we need to prepare ourselves for that world, because times have changed. We cannot compare our lives and our college lives with our children. They don't resonate, relate, or nor are they relevant. So moving ahead with understanding what children think, feel, believe, and do online, and be more accepting of what it is, but also entrusting them the responsibility of safeguarding, needs to be a conversation that every household must have.
Thank you. I think even when this Netflix series Adolescence, I think it was a huge discussion at that point, because how the online mechanism, I mean, I think the type of content is changing the mindsets of adolescents and children. So, Nikhil, there is a question for you. The question is, globally, child protection laws online are evolving quickly. What gaps remains in India's framework, and how urgently do we need specialized cyber provisions or units for children?
So I think, again, see, there are two aspects. So we haven't fully cracked the online safety when it comes to access to content, right? That is still a work in progress, and we haven't cracked that yet. And the ongoing debate with respect to data protection is it's still happening. So we'll probably need at least 2 to 3 years for that to play out and see the impact in the market. That is point number one. Second, of course, the online safety and the sort of responsibilities of platforms. If you see, there are very few graded responsibilities that's been given to platforms where children are coming online, other than for access to data, right? So which means that we need to start thinking about a different online safety mechanism for children itself. The problem here is that, look, there is no right model. Everybody is trying and testing. UK has done something with respect to certain kinds of content, like we mentioned, the adult content and certain content that UK has implemented. US doesn't have anything so far, and I don't think they will have anything as well. But at the same time, Australia has come out with this very strict regulation on social media, because social media has a very different impact altogether on the mental health of children, right? And look, I know that look, we've had a generation which is grown up online because of the fact that we hadn't fully understood what effect online and digital screens are having on them. I don't know which way it is going. While I hear, Sonali, that look, you need to have there needs to be more lesser control per se. I'm not sure which way it will go, because of the fact that, look, there is more and more and more research coming across which says that there is direct relationship between child's mental health and screen time, especially with smaller screens, especially with mobile phones, especially linking ADHD and other conditions to accessing of content from smaller screens. So I think, look, we've like many generations back, smoking was like a habit we thought it was a cool thing to do. Similarly, there is a generation of children who went online very too early in their life, right? Also capacitated by the fact that COVID and other things. But I think it needs to change. I mean, it needs to change in the sense that evidence is now very, very strongly pointing to the fact that children should not be exposed to digital very early in their life, and they should only be exposed to social viewing rather than viewing which is very private, right? Which often leads to these problems. So, look, I think it's an ongoing debate. Based on this debate, our laws and systems will evolve. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if we also have, India actually has one of the most restrictive children's data policy. We say that folks under 18 should be under parental supervision. And probably that is the right thing to do. I mean, I don't know the answer to it, but, looks like the world over, there is consensus growing that, look, 13 was not the right age, 16 was the right age, right? That's the consensus right now. Maybe we'll also move to 16. So it's an ongoing debate. And look, this is one area which I think the next 10 to 20 years will determine the direction that the world will travel. And as of now, look, there is no right model anywhere in the globe, right? There's absolutely no right model anywhere in the globe. And one very interesting thing to think about is also the fact that we now have so many laws about children online. And just to again take on the point that Sonali mentioned, they understand this better, but they're nowhere represented when it comes to creating the laws for them. So that's another discussion altogether that we'll soon be having. Right? I mean, how do we involve children in these discussions? Because they are an important stakeholder. 40 years and 70 years old cannot be dictating and coming out with laws which legislates 13 and 18-year-olds old, right? I mean, at least they should be closer to the reality. At least we need folks in their 20s to be in the parliament and in some of these rule-making bodies for this to be truly effective and truly representative of some of these changes that we will be bringing forth.
Yeah, that's a pertinent point to talk about, because since we were talking about collective responsibility, I think the lawmaking process also should be collective rather than...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, so we are not hearing them at all, right, in the process.
Yes, true.
True.
So I think
I just want to add one more thing.
Yes,
Sorry, I just want to
yes.
add one more thing to what Nikhil said. Absolutely agree. Which is why we are hosting the 10th conference on responsible netism in January, which is for children by children. And they will be creating their safety guidelines to tell the government this is what we want. Because they are not included anywhere in safeguarding procedures. So I think we will share that booklet with everybody who is talking about online safety.
Thank you, Sonali, for that. So I think we have come to a end of the discussion today. And it was a very fruitful discussion. Thank you to all our panelists for their thoughtful and substantive contributions. Also to the audience for asking the right questions and for the active participation. So today's discussion, I think we have highlighted the complexity of addressing online violence about women and girls, especially children. I think we actually dealt with children a lot more in the discussion. The insights actually, I think, to summarize our discussion, we all agree that we don't need a new legal framework or a new law, dedicated law for this, but it has to evolve with constant revisions and updations. And also we need to improve the institutional preparedness, like we need to build the capacities, the digital forensics, and also the cross-border cooperation, it has to improve. Strengthening platform accountability was another major point that we discussed. So the conversation drew attention to the persistent gaps in awareness and digital literacy, which continue to shape both reporting behavior and the responsiveness of institutions, which we need to work on. So I hope the experiences from the field, as well as the operational perspectives of law enforcement, as well as a legal practitioner view, we'll be able to make more coordinated strategies that integrate prevention, capacity building, collective responsibility, and multi-agency cooperation. So on behalf of CPPR, I extend my sincere thanks to our speakers and to the audience for engaging with this dialogue. We hope that the insights generated today will contribute to the ongoing efforts to strengthen our collective response and responsibility. to online violence against women and girls. Thank you once again for joining us, and we look forward to your participation in the future editions of CPPR Dialogue. Good day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Amazing conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash,
Thank you, everyone.
Nikhil,
Bye-bye.
and Sonali.
Thank you, Anu.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Nikhil, Sonali. Bye-bye.